Blue states have been seeing a wealth exodus for years, but their leaders are still doubling down on taxes. Washington state is set to impose a 10% tax on millionaires, and Seattle's Socialist mayor, Katie Wilson, is looking at even more progressive proposals to separate residents from their money. Wilson is also sending a pretty clear message to the wealthy: don't let the door hit you on the way out.
I think the claims that millionaires are going to leave our state are like super overblown, and if the ones that leave, like, bye.
And just months after Wilson urged a boycott of Starbucks, the Seattle-based company, well, it is shifting south, pouring $100 million and 2,000 jobs into Nashville. So if you torture them enough, eventually they will leave, Marcus. Whether you're a billionaire or a business owner, I think the flippant nature in which Wilson is saying, they're not going to leave, almost like this is some big joke or some big game. It's really not.
What is the territory? She's mayor of Seattle. I don't know how far it goes. I don't think it goes into Bellevue, where the actual rich people live. Mm-hmm. And so when she's saying, I don't want you to be here, if you've anybody been into downtown Seattle lately?
No.
There's not.
Lately, no.
There's not a lot of wealth down there right now, unfortunately. And so I'm not really sure who she's offending, but moving Starbucks out of there, which was downtown, is massive. Right. It's massive.
It makes me think of what's happening here and Zoman, some of these policies.
Yes.
Yesterday it was Zozo. Today it's
I'm
Zoman.
Changing it every day. Yeah. I decided I want to change it up.
Seeing which one hits.
Wheels on the bus.
The truth is, I have a really hard time saying his last name. The M and the N to me should be reversed.
Tricky.
And when you go to say it, it's becomes a tongue twister, and I just don't feel like doing it anymore. But having said that, you think about what's happening here, and when I think about what you're describing in Seattle, it's kind of what I'm seeing here. Taylor and I were walking to the show today, and I said, things have not been the same in this city since COVID. It just, for me, everything has changed, and it hasn't recovered, and it only keeps progressively getting worse. And I find myself trying to find ways to be here as little as humanly possible. And so if I'm doing that, I have to imagine other people are. I've said before, this demographic around us has drastically shifted. So maybe the new people that are here are happy with how things are, but the old people definitely are not.
Of course not, because remember what it was like just a few years ago before things looked like this. Brian and Lydia, I am desperate for you guys to change my mind. I hate burning down cities. I'm a strong believer in a community, but I am afraid that the only way to turn cities around like Seattle or New York is to burn it to the ground so that we have a fresh way to rebuild. The way we did it was so bad in the 70s and the 80s until we finally got Giuliani and then Bloomberg in and rebuilt the city. So I don't know if it is better to let the policies fail fast so that people realize how socialism doesn't work, and then the faster we can rebuild the city, or if the slow death is better, and then the rich people live, or the middle class people who can leave can, and then what's left is this sort of slow decline. But I'm sort of this group that you're going to have to burn it down if you want to rebuild it back up. I don't know if there's a way to save it as of right now, but please try to convince. Brian, you almost convinced me, because you said, I don't want murders to reach a record high because I'm building a family in the city. And I feel the same way. I don't want to go back to 2,500 murders a year.
Yeah.
And we were talking to the Miami mayor about this. But is that what has to happen?
Here's why I don't want to see that. I know what you're saying, and sometimes you can say burn it down, and you don't mean quite that. Of course, you don't mean that literally.
Correct.
But you don't even quite mean I want to see it really collapse. My view of civilization is very Edmund Burkean. It's a fragile thing, and if it falls apart all the way, you don't bring it back. It doesn't come back. You always need people to come in and fight for it, which is why I've been on that bandwagon with Griffin in New York City. If that guy's looking for his next big project, man, this is it. You could save one of America's great cities by leading the charge. And I think the same is true with Seattle. I don't want to. Last time I was in Seattle, it was cool. I liked it. I thought it was a great place. Been a while. I don't want to see it fold. But and I'll just say this, the adversaries are not great, okay? Katie Wilson is not a great adversary. Zohran Mamdani is not a great adversary. These people are lightweights. They don't know what they're doing. They've spent most of their lives living on someone else's dime. And if you're a self-made person who has had success in the world marshaling people and resources to do great things, you can beat them. The only thing standing in your way is your inability to get outside of the polite society that you seem to want to impress. I think the problem with the leaders in New York is that it's not the ideas, it's that their social set doesn't want them to be fighters.
They're getting elected.
I am
They're getting
tired of
elected.
fighting. I don't know if Ken Griffin has more energy than I do, but I said I'm going to stick it out during the pandemic, and I'm going to fight for this city. I'm not going to flee, and here we are, and it's 6 years later, and I'm exhausted.
As someone who left the city during the pandemic, I have to say I have no regrets about doing that. I'm glad that I did. You know, I think what I'm rooting for is that Zohran Mamdani will actually be an opportunity, because people will see that the promises he made on the campaign trail just don't work. He won't be able to deliver on them. And so his supporters, I would hope, would do the responsible thing, which is vote him out and listen to other policies and come to reason. Maybe I'm being a little bit too Pollyanna and optimistic about it, but I really hope that it doesn't have to, you know, kind of be crash and burn and have destruction, just for the sake of everyone that still lives here. What I do find troubling about Mayor Mamdani is that he's got the support of the entire Democrat Party. You know, Barack Obama appearing with him side by side in the school recently. That wasn't a signal that Mamdani is the direction of what they think needs to happen. That is what it was. With this Katie Wilson in Seattle, I agree with you. I just don't take her very seriously for moments like that. She's clearly not a politician that's going to unite and bring us all together. She just wants to divide and play, you know, kind of play to optics. And I just don't think that's going to last.
But they're
very
getting
long.
elected.
They're getting elected, but
all-
I'm hoping I'm hoping that people are going to see that it doesn't work.
I know, but we're on the precipice of it happening in LA as well. And so now you have these big cities where this is happening, and all of a sudden people are going to start to wonder, like, is that a better way?
Right.
It's a movement. Obama generally was a communist with a costume on, and he didn't want to sort of present that way because at that time he wouldn't have been elected. But now he's sitting with Zohran Mamdani, and it's like, it's fine. It's okay to be like Bernie Sanders or AOC. And he's not just being that way. He is that way. And that's what they want to see. The party has just become extremely, extremely progressive. And it becomes okay to decloak that now as society has changed. What I wonder is, where are the moderates saying we need to take our party back from the fringes? But unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be happening. Meantime, you brought up Starbucks earlier, and we're looking at the stock.
Yes. Okay. So bear with me. The stock's up 1.2%. For its credit, the stock has been on a tear. Remember, this is CEO Brian Niccol, who came over from Chipotle, who was charged with turning this company around. Unfortunately, this is a CEO who's caught up in another video that's gone viral. Let's watch for ourselves.
People, you know, they want to have a special experience. And regardless of what your income level is, in some cases, you know, a $9 experience does feel like you're splurging. And then what that means is we have to make it worthwhile, right? And then in other cases, people believe, well, this is a really affordable premium experience, because they're saying, like, well, it's less than $10 and I get a really premium experience.
So critics are saying that he appears out of touch. I was not offended by that video. Marcus, what do you say?
I'm less offended after seeing it again. And he is right. People do want a premium experience. You look at front of cabin on airlines, you look at top rooms in hotels. That is true. But he kept saying the word experience, not product. They want a premium experience. So
I'm glad you noticed that, because when I walk into a Starbucks, it is about the coffee. Actually, the experience is really not that nice anymore.
the new ones are actually pretty beautiful.
He's trying to change that, Jackie.
And he's putting money into the environment, much like Delta puts money into the airline clubs. They are doing a nice job, but I caught on to the experience, and I think he's going to try to expand the offering beyond coffee even more, even though they pulled it back. But experience, he's not wrong. He's alienating a portion of the market.
Well, here in New York City, if you're homeless and you need to use a restroom, you can go to Starbucks. That's been my experience. I'm sorry, I feel like you want to say something.
No, just people were shocked that it is $9 for a coffee there.
It is surprising. I mean, I find it hard to pay for $9 for a coffee just because you think about taking out your whole family to get a cup of coffee, right? A family of 4, you're going to spend close to $40 just for a cup of coffee. It just kind of seems silly. But I hear him when he says it's the experience. You could probably look at the way I spend some of my money and people would laugh at the gym membership, for example, you know, but I think it's an experience. I like the group class, so to each his own.
It's only $3 for a cup of black coffee there.
$3.65.
Okay, so it's like $9 for an orange mocha frappuccino.
So he should correct himself and just say, we have products that are $9. We also have products that are for everybody, and we have a premium experience. And that was my issue when we talked about it earlier. Just don't alienate people by making it seem like $9 is okay.
Isn't a big deal, right?